Let's let's get started, shall we?
I love that.
My one-armed glasses. Here we go. No. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Screenfish Radio. It is lovely to have you all here today as we are talking about A24's The Heretic, starring Hugh Grant, who I've oft been mistaken for. Today, for a very special podcast, I'd like to invent two very special women who would like to be a part of our conversation, if you will. Raevin, Larue, and Seun Olowo-Ake. Welcome to you both.
Hello, thank you for having me. I'm so happy to be here.
Relax, I'm not gonna try. Hi, thank you.
Where's your accent, darling? Why are you speaking a pathetic American accent? What's happening here?
Honestly, I hope that you at home will enjoy. I hope that you will have a slice of blueberry pie and join us for this conversation about A24's Heretic. I gotta take this thing off here and do it. All right.
You killed that. That was actually, I don't know, is Hugh Grant in the room with us? Like, it's an uncanny. It's uncanny, the
uh,
resemblance.
honestly, I get that a lot. All you have to do is do this a lot as you speak. But Heretic is from writer-director duo Scott Beck and Brian Woods and tells the story of Sister Paxton and Sister Barnes Thatcher, who are cheerfully going about their mission to spread the good news about the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Working down a list of doors to knock on, they arrive at the quiet suburban house of Mr. Reed, played by Hugh Grant, who seems not only polite but hospitable and genuinely fascinated by the history and the teachings of Mormonism. In fact, Mr. Reed is quite knowledgeable about all the world's religions and is eager to discuss them, perhaps too eager. With the rain coming down outside and Mr. Reed's wife making pie in the next room, the setting is utterly cozy. The only thing that could spoil it would be if Sister Paxton and Sister Barnes wanted to leave, which they cannot.
Dun dun dun.
I should say now that this podcast, as always, is rated S for spoilers, which is essential for a film like this because we want to talk about it. And there are so many secrets hidden within Heretic we want you to know beforehand. So, but if you've seen the film, please continue on. And I am dying to hear what you both thought of Heretic.
I feel like I should go last
Why?
because I have negative things to say. So,
You're allowed to. What? No.
yeah, but let's save the negatives for the last. You go
Okay.
first, Seun.
I never have anything specific to say until I get asked specific questions, but overall, I enjoyed it. I really liked it. I like films that make you think or like just that present different perspectives. So I thought it was interesting, and I liked the gothicness of the film as well.
Ooh, the gothicness. That's
Mm.
interesting. I hadn't thought of that word. What parts of it made you think of it as a gothic style?
Just how dark it is. It's very
The
gray.
setting, yeah. It was giving gothic, dark academia vibes. I agree with that. Yeah,
Yeah.
I the setting was amazing. Like the setting itself was the film. Like it was so scary. And I actually kind of liked his decor a lot. Like I like that kind of library, maximalist, dark colors, dark furniture, interior design. So yeah, I definitely agree. The setting was a vibe.
Mhm.
I I absolutely love that the house is sort of its own form of a puzzle box. Um,
Hmm.
but I I'm not even saying this to be critical of the film because I actually had a blast. Spoiler, I love the film. But I would have loved to have seen more. Like it felt like we just were scratching the surface on this house, but and he had this big model, so I kind of thought it would go more into it. But I thought I loved the look and the feel of the film. It was I feel like this is a movie. I felt it reminded me of a movie like Saw, but not Saw. It's like
Yeah. Oh, Saw. Yeah. I know what you mean. Especially if this film had like installments, that would be cool too. Because Saw is one of those films that you just wish you could rewatch it again for the first time.
Does he survive at the end of the film? I mean, there's spoilers. I don't remember if he survived.
No, he dies.
He dies, right? Yeah, I thought he did.
Yeah. So he will not be returning to terrorize more young women, unfortunately. Well, unless we have another cloud ending, like surprise sequel, I never really died because a miracle happened and I survived. So, he gets chopped by the other girl who dies, the rebellious one. She gets him with because it's a miracle. So stupid.
We're already pivoting into where I know we're gonna end up.
What I'm saying, like I just should go last because it's literally nothing positive. Okay, I like the movie. I actually really like the movie. I would totally rewatch it. I think it should be added to everybody's spooky list or spooky season list, sorry, because it is hard to come by good horror films, especially ones that don't rely on like body horror or jump scares or gore. Like the jump scare is the premise of the film. And it's real because Mans was spitting facts about organized religion and why so many people think of it as ridiculous and look down on people who follow organized religion because they don't think for themselves. And the way he drew the parallels, like the first like hour and a half of the movie was just like a lecture on like how religion is ridiculous. Like it's just retold stories from perspectives of the latest religious trend. So I loved that. It was that, and the tension of his lectures that was building, knowing that this man is going to do something evil to these girls, but through engaged dialogue, engaged educational factual things, you don't need jump scares for that because it's so real. And you could meet, and there's so many people who exist who think like him, people who are like, I'm the smartest man in the room because I've undercut your entire belief system, which is toxic and not cool, right? Like, man was spitting facts, but that doesn't mean that you're smarter than these girls, which shows up later when he's outsmarted by these girls, right? Because it's his own arrogance that gets him killed, right? Because not only does he hate organized religion, but he truly doesn't respect the people who follow it. And maybe for good reason, but also he looks at their humanity as like a waste. Like, you people are just followers. You're people who don't think. There's nothing intelligent or bright about you. There's nothing broad about you. And that arrogance gets him killed.
How good is he in this movie? Like, in all honesty, Grant, like, he is just having the time of his life, and the girls are great too. These young women are wonderful too, but they're not the story, right? It's interesting. Like, you come out of that and you don't say, man, those young women were great. Like, you just, like, he's Joker level maniacal in this. And I like what you're
saying. What
was that?
Sorry, keep going, Steve. I was going to look at their names because I actually forget the actresses' names.
Like, I like what you were saying, Raevin, because you sort of mentioned the fact that whether or not he's spitting facts, he's like, he is just cutting down the trees that they've built their lives on one by one, which in some ways feels even more cruel. Like, now that we've done, now I want to do this to you so that you can go live your life with nothing.
Yeah, that would have been such a cool ending too, because what if they both did survive, which was never the intention, right? But what if the movie's ending was they survive when they're left with this experience that that everything they believe in is turned into a joke? That would have been cool too.
There's this systematic breakdown piece by piece, and each room, and it's interesting to me. It's like, I talk about these movies like Saw, they're sort of these puzzle box type movies. This may be one of the only ones I can think of where the villain just sits in the room with you.
No, seriously. No, really, like the villain is is your neighbor who truly hates you for going to church on Sunday. So he's gonna get you one day for it. It's Sophie Thatcher, who's Sister Barnes. She's the more rebellious one of the two. And then there's Chloe East, who's the very naive, you know, which Chloe East played the hell out of her character.
Oh yeah.
Going from this like fragile, naive, can't stick up for herself to like outsmarting him in the end. And not only that, she never loses her innocence per se, even when she's giving her like last monologue when she's about to die. But she quickly matures. She discovers her survival instincts through thinking critically, which is something that she doesn't do, but he forces her to do. And that's how she's able to outsmart him. I mean, he thought that she wasn't, or either of them were capable of. But like, if I was in that situation, I'm not gonna lie, like, I would have had to attack that man because there's no way I'm going to behind any of those doors. I'm gonna take my chances with trying to kill you first. Like, what is the saying? Get rich or die trying. Try to survive or die trying. Like, literally, I'm not going down those stairs. What? The unknown? Because he's like, well, what's more scarier than the unknown? The known that I'm gonna kill you because I ain't going down them stairs because I'm not coming back up. I would, if I got trapped down there, I would die from a panic attack from being locked in the goddamn basement. I wouldn't even have to figure it out. I would have been like, I'm dead. I'm in a basement. I'm panicking. I got claustrophobia. There's some bitch in the corner who is like fucking dead, alive. I don't know. I don't have the strength for that. No, I'm gonna have to take my chance and try to kill you. Or you're gonna have to kill me first. You're trapped in here with me, man, not the other way around.
Meanwhile, the other alternative is you just sit in that main living room and wait for the doors to unlock. Just
okay, no, but seriously, because the doors were gonna unlock. Like, what was it? Did you say another? How many hours was it?
It's 8 a.m.
The amount of hours.
Isn't it like?
Yeah, 8 a.m. You
like
know what? That movie should have became Survive the Night. Survive the night with me, sir. Because I'm not going behind them doors. Sorry. You die or I die, but no one's leaving this room until the doors unlock or until you kill me. Period.
I'd like to throw it out there that Ravens all talk, and if she was in the same situation, she would not be jumping Hugh Grant and trying to murder.
You know what? I might do it. I know that if I feel like I'm backed into it, what is that Melissa McCarthy scene in This Is 40? Don't corner a rat. This is what happens when you corner a rat. Like, I would turn into full panic attack Melissa McCarthy. Like, I'm not going behind those stairs. What would you guys do in that situation? Would you go down the stairs or go behind one of the doors?
Actually, would just pass out, I think. I think I would also just, I have scenarios in my mind where I'm like, if I'm ever in this situation, God, please just take me. Like, I don't wanna have to fight or think in that kind of situation.
So you would rather drop dead? Is
Yeah.
that?
Yeah. It's better than being murdered
That situation
or going
together.
into a dark basement. I don't know. I don't know what's down there. Just go peacefully.
You know
So
what?
Seun says, I want to drop dead in the living room. And I'm like, no, I'm going to fight Hugh Grant. We need to be the main characters in that movie. Bitch, are you crazy? Yeah, Seun, you better get out. I can't fight this man by myself, Seun. God damn it, this bitch going to get us both killed.
What bothers me now is that I started this podcast impersonating Hugh Grant, so I feel like the story is playing out a little differently here.
Yeah, we need to survive the night.
Workshop
We
right
need to
now.
survive the night with Steve. Like, Seun, just wake up, okay? Together we can take this man out. We don't need to go downstairs.
This podcast will stop recording in 8 hours, and
Survive the night. I won't. Seun passed out, and I'm scared. And this man's bigger than me, so I'm actually dead because of Seun. I didn't die because of him. She actually killed me.
Right? If I was alive or up, it wouldn't make a difference.
Okay, so either way, if she was asleep or not, I still died because of her. It's her fault.
and for you at home, we've locked all the doors. This is
This is ScreenFish Halloween spooky season.
except this movie came out in November. Anyway, no, what I would like to talk to you both about, because we talked about this being a systematic destruction of their beliefs, shall we say. We talked about that,
Yeah.
this being there. So, but as the film is starting to wrap up, one of the big questions throughout the film, and of course, we're open to spoilers, is what is the one true religion? This is the big thing all the way through. And at the final, in the final act, he asks this to which
Chloe
character?
East.
Yes,
Chloe East. The
Chloe
one
East's
who,
character. And he says, what is the one true religion? And she finally says, control.
yeah.
And I'm intrigued to hear from you both how you respond to that, because that's a bold statement, and it's an interesting one at that. I think it's worth exploring. I wondered what you thought.
I mean, as the resident non-Christian, I feel like Shane should go first.
Can you just give me 1 second? Because I want to actually look up the dictionary definition of religion, and then I will answer.
Okay. Webster states that.
To our ScreenFish listeners, I am the heathen on this team. I am the non-believer. I am going to hell.
Oh my God.
I am the one who will be in hell with Rina Sawayama.
You've never said that.
No one has ever said that to me. I've
never said that.
For the record, I'm literally just joking. But I am the non-Christian. Well, my mom, she prays on me. She's always said, you should believe. I'm like, I believe in nothing because I'm a nihilist, Mom. My true God is death.
Oh my gosh.
Cue the emo music. Come on, everybody goes through an emo phase. I just never left mine. Fine.
Your question was, how did we react to that line?
Yeah, well, how do you feel about it? The one true religion is control.
When I was watching the movie, because he kept asking the question, like, what is the one true religion all through? And I was like, I'm actually kind of intrigued, because he was like, I've studied all the world religions and I found the one. And I was like, I wonder what he's going to say the one is. I really was invested in what his answer was going to be. And then when she finally said control, I was like, oh, I guess that makes sense. Because it's almost like I think that's one thing, not the one thing, but that's one thing maybe all religions have in common in some way is honestly how much control it has over your life, whether that's because you give it that control or because it is imposed on you in some certain cases. So I can see why he would say that, looking, I guess, in a maxi, what's it called? Zooming out and looking at all the religions that exist, I can see why you'd be like, this is the only thing that I can see as a through line in all of them. So it wasn't shocking. It was like, oh, yeah, I guess.
Yeah.
What? Sorry, were you going to say something, Raevin?
No, just agree. What were you going to say?
I was just going to say, it just reminded me of the old quote that religion is the opiate of the masses. I forget who said it, but I'm just thinking of it now. This idea of religion as a system, like its own puzzle box, if you will, like its own, you're in now, getting out is impossible, that sort of thing. And religion can use that. Absolutely. Religion can use that. We've seen it. I mean, my gosh, how many things have been justified by religious interest? Like slavery was justified by the church at the time. The churches that argued against it, because not all the churches did, but the churches that argued against it were viewed like, well, not them. Like people using it to defend it. Like there's a certain when you're leaning into a power that isn't you, then it's a lot easier to say you'd better do this, I think, in some ways. Because
I think for Mr. Reed, his problem is that he understands religion, not God. And that's the point of the film. Because religion doesn't serve anybody. Religion is about control. It's about organizing groups of people to set up systems of belief and then shaming those people into believing those things, because that's how you control someone. I mean, You could use the term religion, or you could use psychological warfare. You could use narcissistic behavioral traits. You could use tons of ways to describe how to control a person. So his belief that religion is about control through his research, well, yeah, if you're looking at it through, history and how it's been reinvented, whether it's, Hinduism or Christianity, or following the gods like the Romans did, or the Greeks did. Yeah, these people were afraid of the gods, and they believed that they had to imitate those gods in order to ascend to heaven or to be blessed with good, fortune, all of these things. So in that sense, it is about control. But at the same time, these women who, yes, maybe not the best critical thinkers, or sorry, these young girls who are missionaries, who may not be the best critical thinkers and are purporting their religious beliefs in the terms of their religious system, right? I think he does successfully break down the illogical notions of their belief system, but because they also know God, he does not know God, because to know God is to understand that following anyone is a sin. You're not supposed to have false idols. You're not supposed to follow anyone except for God. And here are the pillars of God. Be kind to your neighbors, listen, do what Jesus says, all that stuff. Or be more like Jesus. But don't follow people. And when you follow people, you follow yourself, or follow them to your own doom, your own lack of critical thinking, your own justification of slavery, or whatever way religion has been used to justify something horrible. And it's because, Chloe East's character, she was willing to play his game, that she understood that in the end, in her last speech, she says, maybe we're crazy to pray. Maybe there isn't somebody listening, but it's nice to pray for somebody. It's nice to believe that things could be better than what they are. The point is that he's evil, not because he condemns religion, it's because he doesn't know God and punishes people for knowing God and following religion. I think, if that makes any sense, but
Yeah, absolutely. Do we have any sense, and I can't remember this in the film, do we have any sense of his backstory? Does he ever state, he doesn't give us any, right? There's no,
he
because
doesn't talk about anything about except for that he studied all the world's religions.
Yes, we know that that he's, well, Mr. Reed has done a lot of reading, if you will. But I wondered that as we were prepping for this, I was like, I couldn't remember any particular thing he said about his experience. They just left, which is interesting because in his case, then, and I'm just thinking of this now, it leaves it out of experience. I mean, we assume that there's some experience, but he's just arguing strictly on an intellectual level.
But not even an intellectual level, an informed level, because he himself is not practicing critical thinking. He's practicing or understanding behavioral patterns or systems of common behaviors, right? He's like, oh, well, the Hindus did that too, and look where it led them. The Muslims did that too, and look where it leads them. He's not wrong. He understands that organized religion or organized anything typically leads to negative outcomes because you end up following the people in charge, the leaders, which I can't say is all bad. Sometimes it can be good, but what is the difference between maybe a grassroots organization advocating for something positive, or say not positive, say social change, and then a religious group saying that to preserve our culture, women can't work or women have to be at home, right? The difference is that one group is asking you to do your own research and be knowledgeable and leaving space for dialogue in an ever changing movement, whereas a religious space or an organized space where you're trying to maintain a belief system of how someone understands it is trying to maintain their belief system of how they understand it. They're not using it for change or using the pillars for good, right? They're using the pillars to maintain their way of life. That's all he, Mr. Reed, understands all he sees. So I don't think he's coming at it from an intellectual perspective. He's just coming at it from someone who has a pen and paper saying, oh, this is a pattern, this is a pattern, this is a pattern, this must be the truth. Which leads him to doing crazy shit like kidnapping women and missionaries and locking them in cages and like, look, a miracle, you know? Like that's crazy. But he thinks he's like Ben Shapiro. Like, sorry, I shouldn't talk shit about Ben Shapiro. But I mean, okay, but Ben Shapiro argues like that though. He does. So like, okay, well, slavery was bad, but like what the context of the time, slavery needed to happen so people could build the country we live in now. Like, was it really that bad? Like, he just argues in circles. Like, I feel like that's kind of how Mr. Reed is, or was written to be. His flaw is that he's not really smart at all. He just thinks he's smart because he's angry that organized religion exists, and he's weaponizing it through saying, "Look at this pattern."
Yeah, what's most intriguing about him, Shay, maybe I don't know if you want to speak to this or not, but I've heard things he said, and I've heard the way he talks about organized religion. And I don't want to get into stories or spill tea or anything, but I've heard moments.
No, you should spill tea. You should definitely spill tea.
I'm not doing it. I got no mug. I ain't spilling no tea.
I have a mug. I can spill it for you, and you just talk as you talk, and I'll spill.
That'll be on our other podcast, Screenfish After Dark. No, I'm not spilling tea. But I've seen moments or heard moments where these sorts of arguments are used in a way that he's not using them, in a way that person views it as healthy, if you say that. So whereas we sit there with control, you could argue that something is control, and I've heard some of these same arguments used in a context of like, yeah, but like you said about the argument of like, well, you don't understand the context of the time and whatnot. I've heard these things. And I don't know. I would just speak to the fact that I think in churches experience, I don't know if control is the right word or if fear is a better word, because I think a lot of people fear challenging someone in a pastoral role because there's this sort of belief that they know something you don't. When yes, there's studying and all this stuff. I'm not taking anything away from that, but I think there can be a fear to speak or at least dialogue. I like that you use the term dialogue. I don't know. Shay, do you have anything to say on this or things you've seen or heard?
I'm going to speak to what you just said last. I feel like you can control through fear, and I don't necessarily think some people, I don't know, some people are. I don't think all people in organized religions or people who are leaders of organized religions are setting out to control necessarily, like
I agree,
like consciously, but I think that's just an outcome sometimes because of that fear. Because even like personally, like if you're afraid, this is something I deal with / dealt with. If you're afraid of, like, God is watching my every move, so I have to make sure that I'm always doing the right thing. I mean, no one's telling me that like verbatim, like this what I should be thinking, but it's in my mind, and so because of that, I act a certain way. That's control to some degree, even though there's no person there, I guess you would say, who is doing the controlling. It's still this kind of, I think people then live a certain way because of that fear. And so in that sense, it's like the religion is controlling them. Do you know what I mean? Even though there's no one person telling you what to do. So I think on one hand, that's that. And then I was going to also speak about, you mentioned people arguing purely from information, which I've seen on like all sides. I feel like, you're in different spaces. Like I could be in a Christian space and then like be at work or in school, which is non-Christian spaces. And so I feel like I hear all the sides of the arguments. And I feel like I've seen on all sides people do that. There are definitely people in the church who would speak like without having any experience in a certain thing or even knowing, being close to it necessarily, who would purely speak purely from an informed place and then argue, I say without empathy. And then there's also people on the other side who have literally said to me, like, oh, like one person I met in university was like, oh, he was talking to somebody else. He said, Seun is a woman of the cloth, I guess, like I go to church. And he said, but she's also very smart. And I was like, why you make it sound like I'm supposed to be stupid because I go to church, you know?
Oh, yeah.
It's
Wow.
all the ends, and you're just like, I don't know. Okay. It's an interesting, yeah, it's an interesting place to be in, I guess, seeing all this.
Hmm. That's kind of
Go ahead.
crazy that somebody said that. Oh, but she's also smart because that's literally Mr. Reed is a character. He thinks all religious people are stupid because, well, he thinks people who follow organized religion is stupid because he expects them not to, exercise critical thinking. And also, I mean, I guess it's deeper than that too, because for these girls, they're Mormons. And I mean, if anybody watched that infamous South Park episode of just breaking down what the Mormon church is, then Mormons are not well respected by the big three, Judaism, Islam, and Christianity, or anybody who can follow any of it, because when you just know the Mormon lore, it's like, come on now. Which I wonder too if it was intentional for the writers to choose Mormonism and not Christianity, right? Because Mormonism is kind of seen as like a joke to people who are not followers, and even a joke to people who are devout to one of the big three. Um, but the problem with Mormonism is that, like, the people who follow it believe in something that we would consider egregious because it's relatively new. Like, it's not as old as Christianity or Islam, right? So I wonder if that's why the writers chose that specific religion. But to add on top of that, well, the comment of, well, she's also smart too. It's let me make sure I say this properly. I guess for him, Mr. Reed, choosing those girls, those missionaries, was because he understands that there's not much going on outside of the minds of people who follow Mormonism. So they were an easy target. And he really does see them as stupid. And they're not stupid, they're not at all. Maybe they're not thinking, or maybe they're not questioning their religion, but they're not stupid. As we find out in the end, because, well, he's outsmarted by them, right? So but he also doesn't see them as people. That's the other thing. He doesn't actually see these girls as like valuable human beings. So to say somebody is like religious but not smart, it is very telling that, well, you clearly don't see me as a person. And I think that's the foundation for Reed as a character. I don't know.
And limiting for knowledge in some ways. It's sort of like, well, I have all the cards here. As we see with Mr. Reed, it's like, it's funny because he invites them into his home to have a conversation, as I put the air quotes up, but he already has the game mapped out, and
Yeah.
he's created the rules and they've already lost.
Yeah.
And it's simply based on their beliefs, which is interesting.
Can I add quickly
Mhm.
though? I always find this interesting when I hear like some people who aren't religious or who don't believe argue against religion, which is fine. But then that whole thing of like you must be stupid to follow this or you must be dumb to follow this. I always find that interesting because I feel like, and especially I guess Mr. Reed is a character like this, where studying all the world religions and seeing how over the years and over history, there's, I don't know, I always see it as in some way people are trying to find truth and they're trying to find God. So I don't
Mm.
necessarily see it as like So then which one's correct? Like these must all be a lie? Because I feel like
Yeah.
my point is I think that's yeah, I think it's almost insulting to say to just anybody being like this must all be a lie, you're all dumb if they're just in search for
I
truth or
mean, yeah,
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 yeah.
I agree with that because I think all humans share the same, baseline anxiety of we don't know. There's so much we don't know about how we got here, where humans come from, right? So there's people who choose to look for answers, right? And there's people who choose to accept the answers that's given to them, whether it's through God or spirituality, right? But to say that someone isn't smart because they follow something, well, you're right. Well, I was looking for answers. What were you doing? Like cutting your wrists in the bathroom because you're nihilistic? Me? I'm just kidding. I was just kidding. Because you believe in nothing and listen to Black Sabbath? I'm just kidding. But like, no, you're right, Shane. Like, it's what's unintellectual, if that's a word for when you're looking for answers and looking for meaning. That's not fair to judge people that way.
It's very interesting because, and maybe I hope this comes out well. I'm just thinking about this now because you talk about religion being control. There's a certain sense of control on the other side here as well, because it's like, well, if you dip your toe in some form of faith, that, you shouldn't do that either, So there's another element of control here. It's this idea that anything outside of that box, and I've talked before, I had this conversation before, I think, where when you look at the church as a box and you're either in or you're out, there can be the same idea that, we have, if you believe it, you had better not believe in anything, or you're in or you're out. You are no longer intelligent if you're not all the way in on that, and that's just as controlling in so many ways.
Well, yeah, I think the term for that, like in psychology, it's like over intellectualizing or it's over something. But yeah, that becomes someone's religion too, whether they say it or not, right?
Yeah.
Like I believe in nothing because I've studied everything and it's all nonsensical. That's not to undermine the fair argument that, and I do believe that systems of religion, I do believe, are fundamentally about control. But to me, that's separate than having faith. I don't think that someone who believes in God is under control. I think you can have a spiritual connection to God. I do think that, and it's not just religion, there's plenty of examples of what systems of control look like. I do think organized religion is that. And it comes out very clearly when you see things like, well, you have to wear skirts in the Pentecostal church, or you can't cut your hair, or, women can only do a certain job, or, when Christian nationalism seeps into Republican values, like that's when we're getting into that's what I mean when I say it's about control. It can be weaponized for that. Is there anything wrong with congregating on a Sunday? No. But do you need to congregate on a Sunday? Also, no. Should you be afraid that you didn't go to church and you're going to be punished by God? No. Because, like, I'm pretty sure, if I can recall this properly, that when I did Bible study, it was pretty explicit that God was like, you don't need to go to church. It's like, you don't need to go to a space to prove that you follow me. You just have to, keep me in your heart, pray to me, blah, blah, blah. So, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but that's what I remember learning, that it's not necessary to go to a church. You just have to make sure you have God with you at all times. But yeah, although I do believe that those systems exist. I think I lost my point. Sorry, I forget now. I lost my train of thought.
You're talking about weaponizing.
Oh yeah, weaponizing ADHD. Like weaponizing it. Yeah, that's not cool. I actually really forget where I was going with that, but I'll get you back later if I remember.
It's really easy to point to that right now because you just have to look at the states and everything going on with the election that will have already happened by the time this episode airs. But we see that, it's like, well, if you are a member of the faith, you vote for this candidate, and this is why, because they agree with these things, which we think are politically accurate. And by politically, we mean spiritually and religiously. So we see, as Canadians, it's a little easier to looking over the fence at that and saying it's there. But I mean, I grew up in an evangelical church, and it was never like that here in Canada. It was never like that. But the word evangelical now is you do not use it. Do not use it because it's associated with this bizarre movement that's been happening in the US the last decade or so or more.
Oh, I got my point back. It came back to me. I was trying to say that, going off Shane's point, believing in nothing is also a form of control. It's also a form of religion, whether you want to call it that or not. Because if you're looking to not believe in God and you're looking for an answer through, well, nothing matters, then you're governed by that too. And that's still a feeling of anxiety and fear. I think personally that humans, the never-ending issue that humans will always face is the fact that nothing matters, but everything matters. And that's what I truly believe, because we cannot prove. Maybe some people say, I believe it. I saw the miracle, which we can talk about at the end. I saw the miracle, or he spoke to me through a sign, or I got a sign. But ultimately, if it's not tangible for humans, which is an aspect our brain needs, we just can never fully believe that something is real. And I think that's a part of our DNA as a species, that we are always going to be looking for something. So it's either we follow somebody or a belief system or a cult, or we get so bogged down looking for answers that it just becomes, I believe in nothing. When in reality, life can be simple. Nothing matters, but it all matters. So how do you choose to treat people? How do you choose to spend your time? How do you choose to use the precious energy in your body? Is it for good or is it for bad? Is good or bad black and white? Sometimes, but there's some things that we know inherently are good, and some things we know are inherently wrong. So I think sometimes when we look at religion or non-religion as that, we cut ourselves off from ourselves too. Our natural intuitions are things that we can't explain that we have, but we do have. And I think Heretic perfectly captures that with Mr. Reed and the girls. And what kept that girl alive is the fact that she kept her faith. And what got him killed is because he was immovable from his belief that religion is about control. He has nothing else except for that. Whereas she had, maybe you're right, but I still have faith. What's wrong with praying for somebody? And that's why she survived.
Which brings us to the film's finale. By the way, now who's spitting facts? Let's talk about the film's ending, because you mentioned it there, Raevin. This is an interesting way that things play out. And while I admit that, sure, there's some leaps and bounds that need to be taken with it, I would love to hear both of your thoughts on it. On whether you thought that, because of course we have this finale where the friend comes back and rescue, and I think she hits him, right? She doesn't. Yeah, she hits the guy and gets her friend a chance to run away. I think that's, if I remember correctly, that's what happens.
Yeah, she's dead, presumed dead, and then at the end when Chloe, so Sister Barnes is dead, but she comes back to life and kills Mr. Reed just before Mr. Reed kills Sister Paxton.
Okay. So what do you think? What did you think of the ending of this film? Because I know.
Seun has to go first, and you have to go first. Because I hated it, and I think it's ridiculous. But you guys don't. You have to go first.
Steve, can you actually go first? Because I feel like my answer is almost a non-answer. Because I didn't even... The point...
I know for sure that if I get trapped in Heretic with Seun, I'm gonna die. Because this neutral status of hers will get me killed. The man would even get to throw me downstairs. She'll get me killed because she passed out, and she's too neutral for this. Okay, I'll keep us alive, and then I die. Just teasing you, Seun.
Shay's still looking for the blueberry pie. She's wondering. She's waiting to come back from the kitchen.
Just neutral.
That's funny. He has a candle that smells like it and baked.
Maybe this isn't happening, guys. Maybe this is a prank because I can still smell the pie in the oven.
No, that's not what neutral means. I'm saying neutral for both of your arguments because I feel like the point that you want to talk about, I didn't see as a point. It was just something that happened. It wasn't anything of importance to me when I watched the film.
Yeah.
So it's a non-issue for me.
Okay, I guess I'll go first then because Steve
You
thinks he's going to
go,
undercut
because
my point.
I got my silver bullet, so I got to make sure I know what
Okay.
I'm targeting.
So, Screenfish community, if you've seen the movie, you know that the through line of this film is the fact that he is promising these girls that he can perform a miracle. And he tricks them into thinking they saw somebody who was dead come back to life. And that's the miracle he performs. And then we find out that, psych, it's a joke. He's keeping ladies in cages and he's just switching them out. Okay. So the reason he does this is because if they can figure out the riddle, he'll realize that religion's about control. There's no such thing as miracles. They don't happen. So in the end, after he kills Sister Barnes, I think it's her name, Sister Barnes, who dies like in the second act, Sister Paxton figures out the ruse. She tries to escape. He stabs her. She's about to die. And just before she's about to die, Sister Barnes comes back to life and she kills him. And there's a moment where Sister Paxton is like, the camera's on her face and she's just like shocked because at this point, Barnes has been dead for, we can assume, a few hours during her trying to escape. So she's shocked because she just witnessed a miracle, which reaffirms her belief in her religion and God. And then when she gets out of the house, a butterfly comes to her finger, which is to say, I was watching you the whole time. A butterfly symbolizes an angel, essentially. So I didn't like the ending because I thought it completely undercut the point, or the point the film was trying to make, that believing in one thing is dangerous, and not asking questions is dangerous. Mr. Reed is a victim to his own, I guess, belief system, because he thinks by proving that religion is not real and it's a system of control, he has the answer. But the point of following God, as I mentioned earlier, religion's not about systems of control, it's about God. He has no God in his life. He thinks that if he can find the answer, which is control, then he has figured it out and everyone else is stupid. That's his religion, believing that religion isn't real. So her coming back to life as an example of a miracle upsets me because he's proven that, yes, religion is about control. And miracles most likely are not going to happen because we cannot prove that God is real. All we can have is our faith, which is well established by Sister Paxton when she's about to die, and she's like, all we have is our faith. And I have faith that prayer works. Prayer works for God, your religion with God, not to have a miracle. So Sister Barnes coming back to life in like the final moments just pissed me off because I'm like, the message is clear. The theme has been established. Mr. Reed is dead. He lost. And it's about having faith at the end of the day. So her coming back to me was just like, oh, so now we're back to, but religion is real, because miracles can happen and we should all live in this place of ambiguity. And, it's not about control when it is about control. And that's why he dies. So yeah, that's why I didn't like the ending. It really bothered me because I thought it would have been a perfect movie if she hadn't come back to life. But what would have been better is that he dies, she escapes with her faith, and at the end, when the butterfly comes to her hand, that's like a symbol of like, okay, she's going to be okay. And an angel was watching because she kept her faith. You didn't need to have the overkill of the miracle because the likelihood of that happening just wouldn't happen because she's been dead for like hours at this point. So yeah, that's why I hated it.
I'll fully concede it didn't have to be the friend. Like it could have been, I think it would have almost made more sense if it was one of the women from downstairs.
Yes.
I would have been okay. I will concede that, okay, you established she's dead, but she's not dead yet. Like, it's like some sort of, but it didn't bother me. And to me, I think, and actually listening to your answer, I realize your answer is probably far better than mine, but I give it to you. Except I will say that the reason the film ends that way, because it was funny. I remember when we saw the film, we came out of it and I said, well, I think I like the ending. And you went, of course you would.
Yeah.
I started laughing. But the film's from her perspective. The entire story is told from the perspective of Sister Paxton. It's not his story, it's her story. So, although you could make the argument that the miracle shouldn't have happened in that way, I think that there's something to be said. First of all, I don't think a miracle is a sign of control as a sign of religious control. I would refute that. You know, you talk about the whole thing is about control. I would say that a miracle is a result of God's action in mankind's in the life of humankind. I suppose is the way to say it. I don't think that was an act of control. She's asking for help. It's not about, don't worry, all religion's fine again, no problem. I think it was a validation for her because the entire thing is told from her perspective. The fear stems from her having to give up the pillar that she's clung to since she's a kid. And actually, I would even argue that at the end of the movie, and I gotta be careful. I want to be careful how I do this, but I would think that she has a healthier view of faith at the end of the movie because of that ending. Because at the beginning of the film, when she's on her bike, they're trying to convert people, and she's just mad, not because it matters to her, but because her friend has converted 9 people and she hasn't converted anybody yet. So it's like, oh, I gotta cat up. It's got to check this off the checklist. Yeah. But by the end, her faith is a little more real to her and tangible. Like you said, the butterfly is a symbolic, and you know, again, like I'm not arguing that it was a perfect ending. I'm not arguing that at all. But I'm saying I wasn't mad about it, and I was okay with the fact, like the way I saw it is they did a complete tear down of systematic religion.
But then they put it back together with the miracle.
But they don't put it together with the miracle. That's what I'm trying to tell you, because you even said religion isn't faith. I think what this one was saying wasn't that, don't worry, the systems of religious beliefs are fine. I think all it is a conversation saying he can say what he wants, but I'm still here. And at least that's what I got out of that moment. Now, again.
So is this secretly a pro-religion movie then? Is that what it is? Where if somebody goes in and says, see, miracles happen. I like, you know, those Kingdom Hall movies that come out often about like being pro-Christian. Is this like a secret Kingdom Hall pro-Christian or pro-religion movie? I think it does a disservice to anybody who's a believer to think that in a situation, a very real situation that could happen, I mean, to a degree, but a situation like that after being dead for so many hours, she could be revived and then come in because God gave her life again and he killed the bad guy. I think you're right. If it was one of the ladies in the cages that came and killed him in the nick of time, to me, that would be an act of faith because she prayed, you know, and God answered.
Right.
I could believe that. To me, that's a better ending. Or if he just, you know, has a stroke or something and she gets out because that would be an operation of faith, because the point of organized religion of control is to prove that God is real and we have to follow God this way. So I'm like, no, it's her faith that keeps her alive. So maybe the expression of her faith should have been if somebody else comes and kills him or he croaks and she escapes. But having that revival is what it's just like, you completely lost me, because I can get behind a religious film that talks about faith and believing in God because it's good for yourself and good for people. But I can't get behind a film that says religion is real and miracles happen, because we just don't know. We just don't know. And this is so unlikely to happen that after being dead for a few hours, she comes alive and kills him.
Well, I mean, like I said, I'm okay with it not being the friend. I'm totally okay with that. In fact, it was a bit of a reach, but sure.
Yeah.
Sure, it's fine. Like, I think this movie's fantastic. Fine.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't call it a pro-faith movie in the same way I wouldn't call it an anti-faith movie. I think they evened the playing field with that ending. They could have gone totally dark. And she
dies. Yeah.
She dies, or she does escape and she's like, this is all bull. And she tears off her jacket or whatever it is. The symbol of the Mormon church or whatever, and throws it on the ground.
Yeah.
They could have gone that way. But I would argue that the ending isn't like, see everyone, it was fine. I think what the ending does though is open the space for more conversation, like we're having here, and say, because that's the definition of a miracle. The miracle isn't like, well, it would make more sense if. The definition of a miracle is that where did this thing happen? It doesn't necessarily make sense. But I'm not gonna. I'm from a film perspective, I'm not gonna sit here and say that was it. There was no other way it could have ended. But I didn't bother me at all, other than maybe the choice of it being the girl, or the friend, I should say. But it didn't bother me because I just felt what they were saying was, even if systemic religion is bull, there's still an opportunity for faith, and I like. Yeah. I would argue that's the balance of it. But I hear what you're saying.
Yeah. I think we both agree that we just wish the miracle wasn't Sister Barnes. And then, because if the miracle wasn't Sister Barnes, I would have been like, okay, I'm here for it. But Seun, now you can go be Switzerland. What do you think?
I didn't see Sister Barnes. I didn't see her reviving as a miracle. I don't know why. I didn't. Okay, sorry, I'm stumbling. When I was watching the film, I don't know if I realized she'd been dead for hours, if she had. I just thought they did what movies do all the time, where someone has died and all of a sudden they're there and they help save the day. There's been many different movies that do that all the time. So when I like, okay, another movie thing, it wasn't to me like, oh, they're saying a miracle happened. I think what I noticed was the butterfly. That's where I saw, oh, she's seeing the sign. And so I think because of that, I'm seeing, I guess, Steve, your ending where you're like, well, the film says, yeah, it tears down organized religion, but saying there's still space for faith. I think I just got there because I was like, yeah, no miracle happened because this movie thing happened. And then she sees the sign at the end where she's like, oh, like, this is a sign that God's been watching me, God's been taking care of me. But I didn't see Sister Barnes reviving as a miracle. I just thought it was a movie plot thing that they do.
Yeah, plot device, yeah.
I think we can all agree that the real faith is in all of us, is in the friendship and the lessons we learned along the way.
And I think we can all agree that Seun would get me murdered if we were in that situation.
I would leave you. I would push out and leave you.
You're still looking for the blueberry pie.
That's not the same thing. No, stop. I had to like put an end to that. No, me saying I'm gonna pass out, it's not me believing he's actually making blueberry pie. I just do not want to be in that situation. So I want to leave.
True. I want a blackening version of this movie. Like, have you guys seen the blackening? I want this to be a Heretic with Black people, because I'm telling you right now, no one's going down them stairs. No one. No one's. You know what? You know what, sir? You're right. My religion is a joke. Now, can I leave? I'm out. It would be a 5-minute movie. Over. They survived.
I wouldn't go in.
Yeah, all they had to do was agree with that man.
At the door and wait for the wife to come out and get you. That's like common sense. You can't walk in and be like, yeah, I trust that you do have a wife and I'm going to sit here and wait for her. No.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
But it's Hugh Grant. That man can rock a sweater.
Yeah. He looks so cozy and nice. No, I actually feel like if this was a movie with like any other race, it just wouldn't be a movie. Because, like, I'm sorry, no person of color I know is going into that house to begin with. Tell you that right now. And no, I want to see a parody of this movie now. I'm calling Marlon Wayans. We're gonna make it happen.
Love that. We got to wrap up, but before we do, we should screen it or skip it. Heretic, screen it or skip it.
Screen it. Definitely screen it.
Screen it.
Yeah, it's really good. It's really so fun. And this is their first film, which actually makes me afraid for their career, because if you have a film this good out of the gate, every film has to match it, and that's a problem.
Yeah, it's a lot of pressure.
It's so much fun. It's such a great film. Thank you both so much for getting into Heretic with me, and I really, really appreciate that. Are we going to do the part where people can find you? on the internet, or should I just talk about ScreenFish? What?
Oh no, you can follow me on Instagram at reinventing Raven. Yeah, follow me. Come hang out with me. Come hear my unsolicited opinions and my bad jokes and my reviews. I have strong opinions on everything I talk about. So if you wanna hear them, come over. It's a safe space.
She's lit a candle and she's welcomed you in.
Yeah, welcome to my home. I'm not serving blueberry pie. I'm serving peach pie. So.
Oh well, that's totally different. That's totally safe.
Totally different. Totally different.
Shay, do you?
My only not private social media account is it's called X now. Twitter X account. And it's just my name at Olowo-Ake. I don't know if you can spell that, but
And as always, you can follow us on Instagram and X at ScreenFish Online and TikTok and as well. And you can go to the website screenfish.net, where we have all the latest in films or film reviews as much as we possibly can of the latest projects out there. And you can follow us on YouTube or wherever podcasts are available, where we have lots of fascinating and fun conversations with industry professionals and amazing conversations with ScreenFish Radio with incredible people just like this. So thank you both again for joining me, and for you at home, we started the conversation. This was ScreenFish.